So I came across a news article. It's a short clip and it has a video where it shows fights breaking out in a store in France where people are trying to buy air conditioners. And people are scrambling to get air conditioners like these things are a hot commodity. This short little segment says that temperatures were regularly getting over 40 degrees Celsius in temperature during the daytime, which is pretty hot. I actually looked at weather stations on a website called Weather Underground. It has like a bunch of independent weather stations, and I looked at Europe, I looked at France, and some of the stations in Germany, and temperatures are getting over 100 degrees Fahrenheit as of yesterday, which I thought was pretty unusual. Typically, like in Europe, if I understand it correctly, you'll see temperatures get over 100 degrees Fahrenheit maybe in Spain. But once you get further north, France, Germany, is usually a little bit cooler. So because of the weather, given the fact that it's a little bit further north, and you have this west to east flow off of the Gulf Stream and North Atlantic current, but you also have like a cool current that kind of goes off the coast of France. Usually the temperatures are a bit cooler in the summertime. The water temperatures moderate the temperatures on land. Well, apparently they're having a big heat wave in Europe, which is kind of interesting. And perhaps maybe it's tied to the El Nino phenomenon that we're having right now. But can you imagine? Now, France has a lot of power that's generated by nuclear power. They have a lot of nuclear power plants. But that's not the case in other parts of Europe, like Germany, for example, which historically has been relying on cheap natural gas from Russia, but they're not getting natural gas from Russia. So can you imagine the power bills in Germany right now? You can imagine a big strain on the infrastructure in that sense, and obviously it's pretty expensive. And a lot of these households in Europe, they don't have air conditioning. They usually don't need it because, like I said, the temperatures are moderated. The climate is something like Northern California, where you got a flow coming off the water. The water's relatively cooler compared to what it would normally be on land, so it cools everything off. So yeah, I would imagine very expensive power bills in Europe right now if people have air conditioning. I would imagine that, like I said, it's pretty unusual to have such a heat wave in that part of the world, but that is what is happening. And, weather has consequences, even political and geopolitical consequences. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Fights breaking out in Europe over air conditioning. So that's one heck of an El Nino.